Whew. Now, you may or may not be wondering why I'm here in my basement just launching arrows into this target at 3 feet. Yes, I do not recommend putting spray foam to repair your targets. Oh my gosh. In the past couple days, a lot of things have actually changed. And I'm not just talking about changing up my stabilizer setup, even though that's kind of part of it. The past week has been life-changing, for sure. And as it pertains to you guys, a big part of it is this guy right here. This is my first ever Vegas scoring target. So just this last week, on February 15th, I decided I wanted to, I guess, put myself to the test at a local indoor tournament and shooting an actual Vegas face. And I was blown away. It was a pretty awesome day because we had a big birthday dinner at Hibachi Restaurant, definitely one of my go-to places. After dinner, we went into this indoor tournament where we were shooting I believe it's a FITA, F-I-T-A, 450 round, which means shooting 45 arrows on a Vegas face, 3 arrows per end with 15 ends. Everyone's gonna have a different definition of what good is, but I've never shot a indoor tournament. I've never even shot at a Vegas face like this. Even though I've had some sitting in my garage for like a year and a half, I still haven't had a chance to shoot them. Everyone was in there shooting their legitimate tournament competition bows, meaning they had 30-inch stabilizers off the front. I don't know if it's 30 inches off the back, shooting with magnification inside of their scopes and verifiers, clarifiers in their peep sight. So you can imagine I was a little intimidated. I was the only guy in there with a single front offset bar, and I was pulling arrows from out of my quiver between every shot. So you can imagine I was a little intimidated. I was a little bit out of my league. I was a little definitely out of the comfort zone, which is always a good thing. And because of the way they classify these events, anything over a 12-inch stabilizer, even if I'm not shooting with magnification and everything else, anything over a 12-inch stabilizer puts you into the open class. So I was competing directly against those guys and not in the Bowhunter class. So, needless to say, I didn't win anything. I would be absolutely lying if I said this doesn't get me really excited. I'm not a 30x competition shooter. I'm not gonna be going to Vegas to win next year, but that's not my goal. I'm a bow hunter who spends time shooting in the backyard, mostly at 3D targets. And I was able to shoot with a hunting bow setup, arrows out of the quiver, 4mm arrows, which is an important distinction because the thicker your arrow is, the closer it can get to break lines. And all you need is to touch the line to be able to get that extra point. I was able to score a 437 out of 450 with 10x. For some of you watching this that actually do competition archery, I'm sure you're thinking that's a pretty crummy score, but that blew my expectations out of the water. I told Emmy I'd be excited if I averaged 8s, like over the course of the end. I would be happy if I averaged, I mean, not 8s, I guess. If I averaged 9s, that would have been amazing, and I crushed that. Needless to say, I'm absolutely hooked on target archery. Like, can you imagine? Look at this. If I had a thicker arrow there, if I had a thicker arrow there, a thicker arrow here. And amazing news, fellas. Was able to go to Shields, sell them one of my ancient bows, trade it for a target. So we up. Don't have to shoot the spray foam target anymore. At least for now. It's really nasty muddy right now. So for the past 2 weeks or so, it's been below 0 every single day, into -15 in the mornings. But today, And for the rest of the week, it's above freezing somehow. Look at how sad all the targets look. They've been buried underneath snow for quite a while. These Reinhardts hold up really good though. Definitely worth the money over some of the cheaper ones. I've definitely gotten at least twice the life out of the Reinhardts as... I have a Delta McKenzie target over here. No shade towards Delta McKenzie, but it's just, it's not even close as far as durability. So one thing that shooting that round of target archery made me realize, so I've heard multiple times that the number one way anyone can get better at archery, whether you're a bow hunter or you want to do competition archery, is shooting indoor for score. And I'll tell you, I mean, especially if you're shooting one of those 450 rounds, 45 arrows deep, you can start to get pretty fatigued. And the problem with a backyard shooter like me, typically you're out here shooting and not keeping track of any score. And you drop a couple arrows here and there and, you know, they kind of just get lost in the abyss. But if you start shooting indoor and if you're scoring a round, you have accountability for every arrow. And I think that can be a game changer for bow hunters. And I know for me, that's going to be a tool I use to get better at holding myself accountable for archery. And there's a couple other updates that I want to bring you in on as well. So some of you might have already seen this if you follow us on Instagram, but the day after my birthday, the day after I went and shot this archery tournament, Emmy went into labor. On the 17th, we had our boy. His name is James Daniel, and it has just been such a amazing blessing from God stepping into this new season of fatherhood. It changes everything, and it's only been a couple days. So needless to say, life has changed a whole ton. But if you want to learn more about obviously the personal side of things, or keep up to date on what we're doing for archery or bow hunting, go to the Instagram. That's where you'll find a lot of that. And I hope you don't make fun of me. I still haven't sighted this bow in for 20 yards or anything. When I was shooting the tournament, it was so funny because I had to use the two practice ends they give you to sight in my windage. And then I cranked my sight down to 27 yards at the 20-yard line just to get it to hit the center. Let's just shoot a group here on the elk. All right. I started aiming for my arrow, those second two shots, or second and third shots. I just took my fletching off. First group of the day. So bittersweet. I did do a couple things to give myself an edge or give myself a fighting chance when I went to the tournament. One, I swapped all of my lighted nocks back to standard nocks. I just didn't want that extra failure point, so I didn't embarrass myself too bad in front of people who actually know what they're doing for archery. I just haven't bothered to sight this bow in yet because I'm not convinced this is the arrow setup I want to use, and I'm really not convinced that the black gold dual track is the sight I want to use right now. As I'm getting deeper and deeper into Western hunting, I think having more than two pins it's a big deal. I love the sight picture, love it. And this is a great sight if you don't want to use a single pin and maybe want a hybrid bow. I mean, it works really well for indoor archery. Plenty bright, you know, I didn't have any issues seeing my pin. I don't know. I don't hate the black gold dual track. I just want something with more pins. I did want to challenge you as a bow hunter to use indoor archery or 3D archery, some kind of competitive scored archery as a means to improve your abilities. If you haven't already noticed, this is a new camera setup, so if you notice the quality is a little better, let me know down in the comments. I will say though, after just getting that taste of target archery, regardless of like an obligation to using it to improve my ability, man, it's fun. It's so fun. I just want to start to really dial in my setup, stop pulling my arrows from a quiver, maybe even downgrade my stabilizer to a 12-inch to compete in the Bowhunter class. But just knowing that I can squeeze an extra point out of my setup next time, that I can improve here and there, that my aiming can be improved, that my release execution can be improved. I think using target archery as a means to dial in our shot process will make us an infinitely better bow hunter. I know so many bow hunters, and I hear stories all the time that things go perfectly, whether you're deer hunting and your target buck walks underneath your tree stand, if you're elk hunting and there's an elk bugling and wallowing right in front of you, or you're mule deer hunting and you stalked in perfectly on a feeding buck. There's so many people in that final moment that can't hold it together. You draw back on that animal and people black out. I remember the first deer I ever shot. Just aim center mass and punch that trigger as hard as you can. Target archery can help you take control of that moment. And don't get me wrong, I totally understand that going to an indoor tournament isn't going to be the right thing for everybody. For some people, it might be as simple as keeping score in the backyard, making sure month over month or year over year, you're actually improving with your bow. I swear I'll get a sight tape on this bow at some point. So I really loved last year, there's a CBE Trek Pro 3V, which is a vertical 3-pin. I did not like the ergonomics of that sight. I did not like how difficult it was to set it up, but I loved the sight picture, how bright the pins were. For the most part, I loved actually using that sight, except for the ergonomics, which is pretty low on the list for me. But if you know of a site or use a site that's similar to that you think I might like better, let me know in the comments. The Spot Hog Boonie or the Excel Driver, now those interest me. Okay. Now, I'll be pretty honest. Target archery has always sounded so boring to me. It has not interested me one bit. But there's quite a few archers that I really respect that preach it as the way to truly get better at archery and not vaguely hit closer to where you're aiming on a 3D target like I am back here, but truly improve your ability. And for me, the most important part of that is getting the confidence that comes with that ability. You're gonna have to forgive me as I'm figuring out this big boy camera stuff. Like, the thing that I will always care about most is being an effective hunter. Meaning, when that moment of truth comes, after potentially weeks of busting your butt in the mountains for an elk, what matters to me is that I can execute in that moment. But I am very tempted to go all in on target archery. Dumb my bow down just a hair with a 12-inch stabilizer. Maybe throw a back bar back on here to do better in the Bowhunter class. I don't know. But couple other life updates, I guess, is running is starting to come back on track. So we are looking really good that we're going to be able to run some serious races this year. A couple warm-up half marathons. I'm running the Lincoln Marathon again this year. And my hope is to run my first ultra marathon and run, I don't know, somewhere like 50 or 60 miles here this summer. I had a lot of skepticism, but I can say that there are some serious things due to BPC 157. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but it's a healing peptide, and For months, I've been unable to run with severe tightness and pain in my hip and inflammation and pain on my knee. It's been a few weeks now using BPC 157 and TB 500. It's a blend of the two. And I can truly say that I'm now moving pain-free, which for someone who likes to run and needs to stay in shape to go on some of the more serious mountain hunts, it means the world. But I think that's all I got for you today. A lot has changed. Thank you so much for sticking here with me. I do encourage you to try out, at least do a scoring round wherever you're shooting your bow. Be able to compare yourself today to where you were a couple months ago and just see how far you've come and gotten better, or if you're backsliding. It's important to know either way. My life is good. We are so blessed by the Lord. If you made it this far, make sure to subscribe, drop a like on the video. And as always, guys, may God bless you all.